I'm Melissa Batt, and this is God-Sized Dreams, the go-to podcast for Christian women who know they were made for more, but feel overwhelmed, exhausted, and stuck in survival mode. I'm your Jesus-loving hype girl, here to help you break free, build simple, healthy rhythms, and take small baby steps towards the life God has for you. If you're ready to trade fear for freedom, you are in the right place, friend. Let's get to it. Hey friends, welcome back to God-Sized Dreams, faith-filled baby steps for women chasing purpose. I'm Melissa Batt, your Christian life coach, and today I'm joined by Kristina Borseti, host of the Organized on Purpose podcast and a personal home organizer. Kristina's story is so much more than just decluttering tips. Yes, we talk about the power of creating order in your home and how that impacts your mental health. But what I love most is how she shares her before and after, chasing the wrong things, wrestling with anxiety and depression, and realizing she wasn't living the way God asked her to. In this conversation, Kristina opens up about the disruption that brought her to a breaking point, the idols she had to lay down, and the freedom she found when she finally said yes to God's call. Her journey is such a picture of what it looks like to stop hustling, stop striving, stop overachieving for status and money, and start surrendering. If you've ever felt stuck circling the same mountain, this episode is your permission slip to pause, declutter what's weighing you down, and trust God with the life He's asking you to live. Does this sound like you? You're stuck in procrastination, self-sabotaging, telling yourself someday. You're overwhelmed, exhausted, feeling like you're failing in life, and maybe even questioning your purpose, wondering if this is all life is really supposed to be. Listen, I get it. I've been there too. But staying stuck isn't serving you, your family, or the call God has on your life. That is where coaching comes in. It's what I do. And just one unstuck session or through breakthrough coaching, I can help you sort the chaos, uncover what's keeping you stuck, and create a simple plan that works for your season. Friend, you do not have to do this alone. Let's get started today. Go to my website, melissabatt.com. That's melissabatt with 2 T's.com, or go to the link in the show notes. Let's dive in and begin realigning with Kristina Borseti. Welcome to this episode. I'm excited to have you here to talk all about organizing on purpose. So talk to me a little bit about how you got to where you are and why you're doing this.
Yeah. So before I was a health coach, and I've taught Pilates for 12 years. But before that, I was in corporate. I had been a career-driven person. I ended up a corporate junkie. I was just trying to work my way up the ladder, and it was all about title and how much money I was going to make, and, just all of that, those status things. Now, keep in mind, I went to church when I was a kid, up until I would probably say I was in high school. And then my grandparents were like, you can make the choice. And I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. So I had some basis in my life of God, and I'd been, again, brought up in the church from a young age, but then I didn't stick with it. But that was always there for me. But I brought no glory to it. I prayed to God like He was, just a genie in a bottle. I was like, okay, I'm not feeling good today, Lord. Can you make me feel better? Rub the genie in the bottle, like give me my wish. I used like most people do. I made a God of my own understanding. And so now I'm doing all these years of just working. And much like the people in your audience, I'm guessing, I don't want to say assuming, but guessing, is just like in this cycle of, for at least for me, not great relationships. Because I would say I was part of the problem too. I wasn't putting my time in, or I was putting too much time in, which is, again, trying to find the job that was going to pay me the most so that I could look a certain way and I could behave a certain way. And so this went on for years, and I was alone. I just felt so sad. Even though I had friends around me wherever I went, I always felt super alone. And that brought a lot of depression. I had anxiety because when I was on my own, I had like all these thoughts in my brain all the time. Like, what if something happens to me? I was living on my own. Like, what if nobody finds me? I'm in this apartment for weeks. Nobody cares. Those sorts of things. Like, just kind of like real, but intrusive thoughts. And so a lot of that anxiety and just carried on with me for a bunch of years. And I was in a place where I drank a lot because that's what you did. You worked, you drank a lot, and you went out with people. And so just a lot of like poor decision making, looking back. Also needed to go through that to get where I was. So I ended up meeting my now husband on sort of a fluke trip. And he was doing MMA, but he specifically was doing jujitsu with our pastor. Interesting guy. He's like a black belt and all the things. And he was doing jujitsu with him, and he noticed that. So pastor would never preach to him, but he would talk about the Lord. And there was, of course, things around the home. And he's just like, this guy has so much peace. Like he seems so relaxed. My husband too had been his own series of life events. I know I'm kind of getting long-winded here, but trying to keep it tight. But so he started going to church. So he starts going to church. We're dating. He's like, do you want to come to church? I went to church and I was like, this ain't for me. He's talking to a bunch of bikers and prisoners. And I'm just like this like white privileged girl from New Jersey who had no real hard things happen in her life. Like, this ain't for me. You know, what is this church? Because it's just a Bible believing church. I was Episcopalian. So a lot of years went by. Finally got saved and was still living in the world. And then we got married and had a baby. And I was getting a little bit better about being for God, but not quite there. I was still trying to be a high achiever. I was still trying to do a lot of things for me. And again, still with depression and anxiety, our relationship was suffering. I got really sick after my daughter was born. I went in for a routine surgery and it went all wrong. So for 3 months, I was away from her. And that was a hard season since I was trying to recover. I was super sick. My family told me they thought I was going to die. It was like all this stuff. Like people can go listen to that on the podcast. So it was a hard season for me. And you think I'd come out the other side going, thank you, God, because the people that showed up for me in that time, my pastor, my sisters in Christ, the other brothers and sisters at church who showed up for me and prayed for me. And I had a tough time. I was mad at God. I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? And so, but that's really like, that was really sort of the change point, even though I didn't recognize it at the time, because he was like, you need to stop everything that you're doing. You're not getting anywhere. And you're still experiencing the same feelings over and over and over again. So I literally
Hold on, time out.
Yes.
Just to be clear, this is you felt God telling you this. It wasn't your husband or your pastor. You felt God telling you, you need to stop all this.
But I didn't recognize it at the time because I still had this broken relationship with him of like, again, a God of my own understanding for the most part. Yeah.
Gotcha. So
yeah,
you kept going and doing your own thing.
So I was like, I'm just trying to survive at this point because I was just so sick and I was just trying to get back on my feet. And I had just had a baby like 4 months ago. And so I was just like in this season of, it was, even though I was sick, there's still this like feeling in you of like this, you know, this sort of like energy running through your veins. Like I need to do things. I can't just be still. And I felt at some point I finally had to surrender to it. And I look back on that time now and go, man, that was such an amazing time in my life to just exist. I was going to church. I was taking care of my child. I was trying to take care of myself. I was able to do things around the house, like get a little choked up about it because I was like, what a special time. And,
I want to challenge you. I don't think that
yes.
was actually existing though. I think that was being.
It was just being, you think? Yeah.
Existing is, in my opinion, the going through the motions, doing all the things, like not being where your feet are, or just, it sounds like what you said is like you were in the moment. You were just being in the moment with like allowing life, like you weren't hustling or doing all the things. It was a time when God just allowed you to be. Like to be still, right?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I agree with that. Yeah, because there wasn't much else to worry about at that time. Yeah. Thankfully, you know, thank God it was a hard season for me, but it wasn't a hard season for everybody else. Thank God, you know? And, but then of course, as soon as that season was over, you know, who was right back in the saddle, you know, like, yeah, got a part-time job, started turning it into a full-time job, went back to teaching again. And it was just like, I was working all these different things. I was trying to become a health coach. I decided that I wanted to open my own little studio space. And then it was like, but this is God, he wants me to do this. I got sick because he wants me to help other people or in this situation, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, in part, I think his story is important, but was that my purpose for me? Was that really what he wanted me to do? Or was it for me so that I can be there emotionally for other people going through a very similar situation? Because as I said, I had a pretty sweet packaged up life. I mean, my parents were divorced, but otherwise, like I'm not afraid to admit, like a little, riding the wave growing up. And so, yeah, it was just such like it was like a huge thing. And so, yeah, but I got back into it because I was like, no, I can't be lazy. I have to work hard. Gosh forbid. What happens if back to the intrusive thoughts. My husband's going to leave me. What if he dies? I got to do all these things. And then I was doing an internship for Steph, and I was also trying to figure out what I want to do with my podcast. I was working basically 3 jobs still. And it was the summer, which, right, we slow down. Kids are in camp. They're not in school full day. So you're still booping all over the place. I should have been spending more time with her. This is a season where I should have been slowing down. I was like, no, let me do more. And I remember being on my computer up to like 1:00 in the morning because we're in the middle of this launch thing and going like, what am I doing with my life? My daughter fractured her leg on a slide at camp 2 days later. And I showed up, and I will admit this, I showed up being like, she's just exaggerating. This isn't happening. Cause I was like, no, I'm not, I'm not dealing with it.
You got a plan. You got to do your stuff.
Yeah. Like, I'm not doing it. Took her in. They're like, yeah, she fractured her leg pretty bad. Like bone from skin. Oh gosh. I just remember like, that was the moment that everything changed for me. I still have responsibilities of things that I had to meet, deadlines and things that I needed to do. But I knew after that stuff was done, I'm like, I am never going to get into this season of life again. Things need to go. What needs to go, God? Help me to see what needs to go. And he was like, you already know. He's not talking to me. I know he's not saying audibly, but like in my brain, it's like in your heart, you got, like he was like, oh, no, you know. And I know you don't want to let them go because you think I told you to do these things, but I never told you to do these things. You did them because you wanted to do them. Like you weren't reading my word. You weren't rightly dividing it. You weren't discerning it. You weren't talking to other women in your church and getting good, godly Christian advice from other women in your church. You weren't talking to pastor. You decided that you wanted to do these things. And that's what brought me into home organizing, right? You're like, what? Because I had this push years ago that this was something I was doing in every single career to some degree. And I found, of course, as a mother, you're like, man, I got to get this stuff in order. So I just started to do that. And I noticed in every season, things were changing and I was able to kind of adapt with that. And I was thinking like, okay, like now that I know, like, this is how it works and I kind of have a skill set. But I didn't want to do it because again, I just didn't want to do it. I was like, this is another business. I don't have time for this. I don't want to start it. And then I was like, all right, I'm just going to try. I finally was like, okay, God, you keep putting it in my face. Like, I'll try it. And I reached out to a couple of friends and I was like, hey, can I organize your home? It's like a lot of organizer story. And they're like, sure. And I went in and I did it. And I was like, oh, this is great. And it worked. And it's been so amazing and fruitful in ways beyond, like, I'm not obviously just putting and tidying up clothes and making things look pretty. Like, that's not how I organize people's homes. Like, I'm going in because I'm trying to help you create something in this season, right? We're not hanging on to anything. We're not, I'm so bad with like quoting scripture, but like, lay up not treasures for yourself here on earth that moth and dust corrupt. Like, that is like another one that sits with me when I go to people's houses. I'm like, when you go, this is going to go too at some point. Like, you just got to, right? As we do with things in our lives, the things we're putting on our calendar and holding on to for dear life. And I mentioned in our like sort of pre-call that like Ecclesiastes 3:1, I did not say that right. Ecclesiastes 3:1. And just everything for a season. That is like the basis for my business. Everybody wants the solution that is going to last a lifetime. Your life changes all the time. And I wasn't recognizing that. I was not aware that life was changing. I just be like, I love change. I love adapting. Oh, no, I didn't. I hate change.
Yeah, same.
Right? We talked about that. So I just, having those biblical standards for living, like that's where it was switched. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go out and find a new career. Like when that season came with my daughter fracturing her leg and I had to slow down and I was like, okay, I got to pay more attention to my family and my life. Like they're basically quote unquote screaming at me that they need attention. It was like, no, it was like, okay, I need to learn the word. Like I need to read the Bible, not just pick up a devotional and get a cute little quote for the day and tell me their story. Like I need to learn the things. So that's,
I have some thoughts on this, and I really also though want to get back to like what you do and how you help people, because I know for me, one of the first things God showed me as I started circling the wagon and getting things in order and living on purpose was how much my home and the things in my home impacted my mental health. A lot of my listeners are struggling with their mental health, and I think that we dismiss, and I think some of us, we dismiss how much that really impacts our mental health and our brain. Like right now, my kitchen island has a bunch of stuff on it, and it's been there since the end of yesterday, and I'm like, just that little thing, it needs to be cleared off, because that will I turn into a crazy woman when I go into the kitchen. I don't want to cook, I don't want to clean, I don't want to do anything if that space is messy. And when we talk about circling the wagon and getting things in order, we talk about your health, our home, it all goes together, right? Because here's the thing: when I'm trying to be intentional in my health, and I think you can connect with this if you were a health coach, I'm trying to eat healthy and not be eating fast food all the time. I'm trying to prep meals and always have green vegetables to eat on hand. That's already, part of the thing I recognized was, well, if I clean them and have them ready, I will eat them when I'm hungry. Because if I'm starving, I'm less likely to choose them if it has to be cleaned and I still have to wash the vegetables and all that stuff. But I also don't want to clean the vegetables and do all that if I have a sink full of dishes and my kitchen's a mess with stuff all over the counters and stuff like that. Even the dishwasher, I don't want to put away what's in the dishwasher if the stuff that's in the cabinets is already cluttered and so full that when you open the door, things fall out. And this is stuff that God had to walk me through. I didn't have a coach to help me. Like God literally was like, one baby step at a time. We're going to go through every drawer, every closed door, every cabinet, from your kitchen to your bathroom to your closet, everything, linen closet. Like you're holding on to a lot of stuff that is absolutely not necessary, and it's causing havoc in your life. Before we go there, though, while we're on this topic, and before I forget, because all the other stuff is in my notes, this is not in my notes. I think this is going to connect with a lot of women. As someone who is a high achiever like you, one of the things that I know last year God showed me that was really hard, and I had to have lots of talks with God over, is submit. But submit was not a pretty word, so I used the word follow instead. But in that, I recognized that He wanted me to really be in the roles that He had given me as a wife and mother. And those were to be the priority in this season. And this was last year. And I remember, and this is hard to admit, but I'm going to tell you, I had a little temper tantrum with God, because I wanted, like, my role as a wife and my role as a mother, I don't get the instant gratification there. And what I found that God has shown me is that I crave the instant gratification. And I love to help people. And God gave me that, right? Like that is God given. But in that, like, I have to recognize, like, I need self-control and I need discipline and I needed to get things in order. And in this, like, my priorities, like, for him to like literally call out, because at the beginning of the year we always think like words of the year or whatever, and every single year I'm like, growth, right, God? Like, it's gonna be growth. My business is gonna grow and it's finally gonna be like what I want it to be. And I keep thinking it's gonna, like, I'm like, okay, you're gonna give me that like top spot again, right? Like, it's different because I'm not in direct sales anymore, but I'm like, you're gonna, like, I'm gonna maybe have my name in flashing lights somewhere. Like, we're going back there, right, God? And maybe not. He hasn't shown me, but every year I'm like, growth, right, God? Like, that's where we're going. And last year he's like, no, no, daughter of mine, it's not that. You're going to really prioritize. I homeschooled both my younger two children last year. And so he was like, this is going to be your priority. You're going to be where your feet are. And you're really going to be very intentional in stewarding this well. And it was so difficult for me. And I think without saying it, like, that's somewhat like what you experienced. You use different words, but it seems sort of similar when you talked about your daughter and that kind of thing. Is Do you find it as hard to lean into those roles?
I did.
Okay,
I
so
think
you agree with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I never wanted to be a mom. Like, not say I didn't want to be a mom. I just never grew up thinking like, oh, I want to have kids and a big family. Yeah.
Same.
And
Which is rare, because I feel like everyone is like, oh, I always wanted to be. I did not.
I was like, no, because I think part of it has to do with my parents being separated. My grandparents were adorable, but my grandmother was just, God rest her soul. She was just a crazy woman. And then my great grandmother, who was around, which was awesome when I was super young, like, she was also a product of divorce. So there was a lot of that running through the family. And it just seemed like a lot of resentment. And I watched my mother with her mother, and I'm like, I think I was just taking that in and putting it somewhere in the pecs of my mind, going like, if this is what it's like to be a mom, like, I want nothing to do with it, probably. And then I'm sure that impacted all sort of relationships I had going forward and that sort of thing. And I just romanticized things a bunch too, because I would bury myself in books when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, or this is what I thought the relationship should have been like. And when it's not like this, because Cinderella's not a real story, that like, you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was really hard for a long time. Even when I had the baby blues. I wouldn't call it postpartum depression in the extent that I know some of my friends have been through, but I had her and I was so detached. And it was really hard for me. Like, if she would cry and I would get frustrated instead of wanting to comfort and hold, which I think happens to a lot of us anyway. But it was just weeks of me just feeling sad for no reason. I hated it. I was like, why can't I just be happy to be a mom right now? And I couldn't. And then of course I got sick, and that I was just taken away from her for that period of time. So I think all of that made it even harder when I was back at home to lean into being a mom. And I also I never looked at I was just like, how am I a mom? Like, I feel like I'm still a teenager, even though I was in my 30s when I had her, right? You're like, I should not be taking care of anyone. I am a mess. Like, even though I was fine, I never felt like the moms who like took pictures of the babies on the, what, month 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I did it twice. And then I was like, oh, I'm over it. And then it's just like, we're dressing the kids up with your matching clothes. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. But that is what I thought motherhood was supposed to be like for whatever reason. So I was like, nah, this ain't for me. And that actually harmed a lot of my relationships. But you kind of lean into things biblically and you one, okay, well, if I love God and I trust him and I, believe Jesus was raised from the dead, all of the things, and I'm in fellowship with him, then my priority, as you said, is God first and that family. He goes, my husband and my kids. And if that's what it is, and that's what it's supposed to be, like how I got to get rid of all of these previous thoughts and preconceived notions, like I'm not a mom, or, because it doesn't look a certain way, or if I take care of my home, that I'm suddenly less than my husband. We have, I think that was another thing too, because my mom obviously she had to work. She was a single mom. And my whole life I was told, like, get a job, work. And my mom, who knows, she'll listen to this, but as soon as I got married, she was like, you save your money in case something happens. Cause she was so bitter. So I just thought that's what I had to do. So leaning into a relationship with my husband for the first 6 years of a relationship, I thought he was going to leave me. So I saved all my money and I put it to the side, and he didn't see the money that I made. Every once in a while I'd sprinkle some into our joint account, but I had a separate checking account. Wow. It was just a lot of that. I had all these things inside of me, and now I don't care. I'm like, all my money is your money. Take it. We have just a better relationship now. We both had things to work on, but it was a lot more on me.
What I hear you saying is that somehow, I know, to do this, you had to have slowed down. But you started catching the thoughts and flipping them. You flipped the script. All of those, we all have thoughts that go through our head all the time. So many of us are so busy doing and going and doing all the things. We're doing all the things, or we're numbing out, we're filling our head with noise, whatever it is, that we immediately dismiss the thoughts that come in without actually recognizing and identifying where they came from. And when we can identify where they come from, we can actually recognize, okay, is this good? Is this bad? Or is this God? And sometimes it's not good or bad. It's just a thought. We don't have to define it as good or bad, but we can recognize, is it from God or not? And I was having a conversation with a coaching client today, and we were talking about some of the things that she was doing. And she said she was trying to fill all of her day so that she didn't have any time to be alone with her thoughts. And I said, okay, well, I want you to recognize that. I'm not saying it's good or bad for you to do that. But I want you to talk to God about it and ask yourself, are you operating out of fear, or is that discernment and something God has asked you to do in this season? Because maybe this isn't a time where you're going to identify and spend a lot of time on all these thoughts that you have. Maybe you really do need to not be doing that at this time. However, most of the time it's because we're operating out of fear, and we cannot heal and restore, give God the opportunity to do that when we aren't willing to face. And in the church world, as Christian women, and just church as a whole, I think we do this thing where it's we just ignore it, suppress it, deny it, because we're well, that's not from God. But there's still work to be done, because that thought is there and we can learn from that thought. Where did that come from? Is that just a branch off of something that's deeply rooted that brokenness inside of us that needs healing? And so leaning into that is so good. So I love the fact that you're talking about these thoughts that you had. And also, I know that means you had to slow down. Slowing down was first before you could even acknowledge the thoughts or even consider addressing them.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, I've always been I would say I've always been a deeply introspective person. I was like the brooding teenager journaling in my bedroom.
Hey, real quick, if you're listening to this and realizing deep down that coaching is really something you want, but you just don't feel ready yet, I want you to hear this. You do not have to take a giant leap at once. You can start small. Whether that looks like a single breakthrough unstuck session or committing to 6 months of breakthrough coaching, I would love to walk alongside you. Also, I want you to know, like, the point of needing a coach is because you aren't ready. The things that God is asking us to do, we will never feel fully ready, but we still say yes because it's not about feeling ready. It's about doing the thing we know God is asking us to do. And so if you're not feeling ready about doing the thing, or even when it comes to coaching, I want you to know that that is totally okay. You may never feel ready, but that doesn't mean this couldn't work for you. So get excited, click the link in the show notes, go to my website, Melissa Batt, that's Melissa Batt with 2 T's.com, and learn more about what I do. All right. I want to ask you, in decluttering and organizing, I know the impact that it had on me, but as someone who does this for a living, I'm sure you have more tips or more insight on why that's so important. Would you care to lean into that a little bit more? This is permission for you to get on your soapbox, okay? And tell everyone what you wish everybody would do and know, because it really does make a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say is unless you're packing up your house to move, as we've discussed, is a stressful time. And then the clutter matters. The stuff matters because you got to get rid of things. You got to know what you want to take with you. You got to categorize what you want to take with you, and you got to move it, right? And figure out what you want to do with the other stuff. That's when it matters. But for like the everyday folks, like you're just talking about your kitchen countertop, and I'm looking over here at my office space, just piled with some stuff I got to get through. Everyday clutter, it's really not about the clutter. It's about what's going on internally, because you can live with a decent amount of daily clutter, quite honestly. I think most of it, especially with kids, like you have to. Like my daughter's stuff is all over the house. I could clean it up 15 minutes, and in 15 minutes after that, there's stuff everywhere. And, I try to teach her some routines and systems, but she's 8 and I'm doing the best I can. But for the most part, that clutter is really something internal. Something else is happening. Like why, if my house is a complete disaster, and I'm not, throwing any like arrows at anybody, if my house is a complete disaster, why? Why is it a disaster? Am I working? Am I putting all of my energy into idolizing my job? Am I spending too much time, just out and about doing whatever, being a housewife, like we talked about that, just doing the housewife things, going out, getting my nails done, going to work out, and like getting spray tans or whatever. Not saying any of those things are bad, but we gotta have a little balance with our life. Where's the focus? Where's your focus going? Are you spending time in the Word? Are you connecting in with the Lord? And so people will differ in opinion on me, but I really do feel like God bless us with this house. Even though I always talk about selling it, but like this house that we live in, we got it on Easter Sunday. Like, I mean, I thought that was just wild, right? And so I always think about that, and I go, okay, we were struggling looking for homes, but God gave us this home because He knew there was going to be some big things that happen in this house, and I want to take care of it. It doesn't mean pouring all of our money into it to make this house look Pinterest ready, but it does mean taking care of what's in the home. And
Stewarding.
yes, stewarding in the home, the people in it, the things, and all the things, right? So if I have all this stuff everywhere that is just causing me more mental load, emotional load, and the eyes, right? The eyes see first, the tangibility of things. So I'm looking at that going, is that this is like a reflection of what's going on in my life and all these things where you get into this sort of cycle. Like where's my focus? What am I doing with my time and my energy? And it's just, to your point earlier, taking the pause to understand what is going on with me mentally right now. Am I so overloaded and exhausted? Like I now have adrenal fatigue that I can't even put my dishes away at night. And again, this is not to say there's some people, like I do work with some people who have ADHD. Like that's a whole nother ball game of stuff. Things are clicking through their minds. I do not, I mean, maybe, I think I feel sometimes I have a shade of that just because, social media, like and all those things. But I get it. We numb out and then we don't do the things that we need to do. And then things pile up and pile up and pile up. And then you look around and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't. And I don't know where to begin because now it's just so much. And it's like, okay, it's a lot because you're seeing that it's a lot, but you also have been through a lot in your life to get where you are. You have probably experienced like this, at least at our age, 45, some loss, grief. There are just multiple changes, health stuff that happens at this age. We were talking about that earlier. And so life is difficult. Life can be overwhelming and hard, but we can fix this. This is just stuff that can go back to where it needs to go. And so we could just start small. You're talking to your people the same way I'm talking to my people. Let's get grounded in the word. Let's get spiritually discerned. Let's community, right? We were going to talk about that on my podcast. We didn't get to it, but community around us. The more time I was spending with my gals at church, the more I started serving, the more I stopped looking to do things to make money, to make my way up the ladder, to get recognition. I started doing things to serve. That changed everything. And I'm like, okay, I don't even need any of this stuff in this house. Like, this is dumb. I'll go to the store, I'll go to Five Below. Do I need anything in here? I don't need anything in here. I don't need it.
I know for me, like
that.
I have a coaching client that that was the help that she needed, was decluttering. And so, but when she said that, because I will do like these 12-week goal things, and they get a set of goal, and some of them are like businessy type goals, some of them are spiritual, but one has to be personal, and hers was decluttering her home. Mm-hmm. And in that, I had them brain dump all the things or whatever, but a few things that I pointed out to her was like, you have to recognize how it got here. And you also have to recognize, like, when you're going to start decluttering, you probably need to start paying attention to what you're actually bringing into the home. There's a lot of people right now that are shopping as a way to numb out that instant gratification from Amazon or whatever. And so their whole entire house is full of stuff, mm-hmm. because they're scratching an itch that God would love to fix that area. But instead of going to God, they're going to shopping, and continuing to consume and fill their house with stuff that they don't need. And then, there's shame, there's guilt, there's financial issues, there's overwhelm. Mm-hmm. And then, when we talk about the hospitality part, like, girl, some of my listeners are struggling with the depression and the anxiety, and their house has gotten out of order. And so they feel called to invite people into their home to have a meal or to break bread together, and they won't, because they are ashamed of what their house looks like. Mm-hmm. And I say this with all love, but again, there's other ways to do it. Meet on your front porch, meet at the park. We can do that. But also let's acknowledge the elephant, because if you're ashamed, there shouldn't be any shame on your home. Like, we need to, like, when we're doing real community, we should be able to let people in. But I also recognize not everyone, I'm not going to let just anyone in my house when it's messy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm right there with you, sister. But at the same time, like, what are we going to do about it? Because how is it ever going to change if we never change? And if we need help, ask for help. There's no shame in asking for help. And there are people who will walk with you. Like, that's what you do, right? Mm-hmm. Kristina, like, that's what you do. Whether you do virtual or in person, correct? How does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, in person is I'm here in the Boston area. So if you have any listeners over here, I will travel up to 2 hours from where I am. Which these days with traffic is not very far. But yeah, I mean, so I do a lot of my in-person stuff here, and that's a matter if someone, again, is listening and they're in the area, that it's a consult call. If it's a bigger project, I come to the home, I do a walkthrough, and all of that is that's just me coming in to see if it's going to be a good fit, if I can help them. And if not, I have resources of people that I'll send folks to. And then I'll do a project proposal, and that project proposal, and I'll do this for virtual clients too, if we dive that far in, but there's a slightly different client that comes in through the virtual avenue. But in person, I'll do a project proposal and walk through all of the areas that we talked about, and I'll pick priority areas for us to start with. And then we'll create budgets and do all of that stuff. I mean, that's like, max. I have all these rooms in the house that are just close the door on and I don't want to look at, or garages and attics, which yeah. Spent a lot of time in some dark places in the last 6 months, but it's all for the better. Then when I do a virtual consultancy, that's no one's trying to spend 3, 4, 8 hours on a Zoom call. I know I'm not, and I know that my potential clients do not want to do that. So it's more of like, tell me what you're looking for. We pick the priority area and we work on that. And there's of course some natural coaching in there. Why I'm not a life coach and I'm not trying to direct them in that way, whereas like they would work with someone like yourself. There is a bit of coaching in there to help them recognize, why is this bothering you? And what I've found is, as I was saying, it is a matter of like, my son was diagnosed with an illness and I'm really stressed out about taking care of him. And their home was very clean, but there were things that were bothering them. And it just was, she just needed to talk to somebody and just get some ideas outside of her, outside of her family. There is you were saying, the people that I don't know where this is, so I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to buy something to replace it. Then I'm also going to buy a couple of things because, I can buy all this for $50. So it feels like I won the big prize here. And I'm going to go home and then I'm going to lose those things because I got really busy this week and I didn't get to do my laundry and blah, 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 blah. Like it becomes this cycle. And there's all these things. And then there's the different seasons of like, I'm moving. I lost my husband. There's having a new baby. So all those seasons I kind of talk to when I'm doing the podcasts, but there's an overall kind of organizing strategy that I try to give people through the podcast, but there are so many different, that's why it's hard for me to talk more about specific organizing. A lot of people want that. They're like, give me the answer to how to hang these hats, and I'm like, I can't, because I don't know you, but we can try. We can try. Yeah. So
that's why they need like one-on-one calls with you.
Yeah, is the one-on-one. Yeah. And it would be, I try to do like 30 minutes to an hour. 30 minutes, like we kind of, like I always say 30 and then we end up talking for an hour. I block it out because I don't want people to get scared. Like I don't have an hour of my day to talk to someone about organizing or to do this. It's like, all right, well, let's talk for a few minutes and let's start making action. Let's just do it. So,
yeah. My one coaching client, I remember with her, like she would literally have, like we would do calls and she wasn't getting it done between our calls. So what we ended up doing is like, I just basically gave her a pep talk as she was doing it. She would put the phone in the corner of the room or her computer, whichever. And then as she like picked it up, like she'd be like, I don't know what to do with this or whatever. And I gave her a little, and I'm like, okay. Or she'd pick something up and she'd be like, this is my son's. I don't even know why it's in here. I'm like, take it to his room right now. Like, because if not, you end up with all these piles. Right. The other thing I wanted to mention that I think is going to be really relevant to those listening is guardrails. And I was talking about this too. I'm doing a move meetup group every Tuesday and Thursday. And they're getting some life coaching for free when they show up. And we were talking about living on purpose and getting off the hamster wheel. And I said, as you're going through life, I suggest every single person to create these guardrails. The thing that when you're about to run off the road, it hits and like, alert, you're going off the road. And one of mine is my house being messy. One of them is lots of laundry. Because if I am not doing and used to, like in my direct sales top leader days, I built an addition to my home for a giant laundry room that looked like a freaking laundromat, had 2 sets of washers and dryers. And I still would go buy towels when I ran out of towels. I was not in alignment. I was not stewarding things. I wasn't stewarding my money well, and I wasn't stewarding my home well. And I didn't even see it. I just joked about it. I'm like, well, at least now I have a place to hold all the clean clothes and the dirty clothes, whichever it may be. But in that, so creating these guardrails, like if you look at your house and it's constantly messy, let that be a guardrail to like alert. Or I live in Kentucky, so we have mountains and all of that. So guardrails, like it's going to protect you from going over the cliff. It might be the bumper strips on the interstate or freeway, whatever you say in New Jersey, like that tells you you're about to run off the road.
Yeah.
And it's very loud and obnoxious, and like you will wake up. And so think about what those are. Another would be like bills not getting paid. Again, it wasn't because I didn't have the money. It was because I wasn't being intentional and taking time to sit down and work on my finances and making sure things are in order, which again, like let's be intentional in the areas that really matter where the enemy can hit. And when our home is in major disarray, when it causes shame and you don't want people to see it because you're afraid of being judged, you're still having to experience living there. And I have ADHD, so I totally get, like, there are times when I will tell my husband, he knows when I'm having a good day and when I'm having a hard day. When I am having good brain days, my house is very clean, organized, meals are cooked, everything is good. When I'm not having good brain days, it is not. And for a long time, I felt shame around that and he didn't understand it because I was just laying in bed or whatever. And he's like, oh my gosh, why don't you just get up and do something? I'm like, do you not think I would if I could? So recognize where you are, but also recognize that you don't have to do it alone. There are people who are willing to help you. That's what I do. That's what you do. God is allowing other people to do this kind of work so that you can link arms with someone and get the help that you need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make a note, and I know it sounds kind of fluffy and, as I was saying earlier, kind of like a cliche devotional, but and I know this because of the women I've worked with, is that they are so capable and they're so strong and they're so smart and they're like the best parents and friends. And I think to a fault, right? That they're just there for those people so much that they neglect their own needs or have been neglecting their own needs for so long.
That's so important to mention.
Yeah. And I want them to recognize that just because the house is a mess right now and it seems overwhelming and, oh my gosh, just know, right, that you are capable. This is not a reflection on who you are in God's eyes. I think that's just something, like, we put so much into our identity of like my home defines who I am, and people can't come over if it doesn't look a certain way because they know that I do this job, which this is my identity, or, being the mom identity, all the things that we put ourselves into boxes because we just love to label things. That, take all that away and you're a daughter of the King. And oh my gosh, I always say this, but it always blows my mind. I'm like, and people have said it before, but like, if the spirit that rose Jesus from the grave is in you, you can do anything.
Yes.
Right? So like, let's just take that, pack it away, and remember that when you go to, you're like, okay, I see this mountain. I'm going to climb up it.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Not only can you do hard things, but also recognize the wound that is there when you're neglecting your own needs. Because there's a reason, like there's some brokenness there that is causing you to ignore your own needs. And probably feel unworthy, probably feel undeserving. And at the same time, like you're doing, and nobody knows you're struggling. And God's like, you matter too. Let's work on here. And you only have so many hours in a day. And if you're constantly doing for everyone else, the reason your house may be in the situation that it is because you didn't have the time because you were putting all your time in this area. And while like that seems like that's martyr characteristics, like we're being a martyr for someone else, at the same time God loves you and wants you taken care of also. And so boundaries are necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I come in to help, because I want to help give women boundaries so that they can have the words, use the words, and recognize that their worth is not defined by what they do for other people. So many people struggle with that, and they think they're lazy if they're not doing for other people. Or it's that instant gratification when it comes to other people. You feel really good while you're helping other people. When you're at home, like, you can block that out. You're not home very often. You might spend more time at home if your house was a place that you could actually enjoy. That's supposed to be your refuge, a place where you can rest and be restored.
Mm-hmm.
And God can do that work in you. I so loved having you on this podcast.
This is great.
We totally went in so many different directions and not what I expected, but I feel like that's what I love. I just listen to God and those nudges and, like, let's go this way, because this is, I just want to have a Holy Spirit led conversation where the women can really get what they need when they come and listen. And thank you for being here. Tell everyone again, your podcast is called Organizing on Purpose.
Organized on Purpose. You can listen to it wherever you listen to podcasts. It's out there. So it's good.
Yeah. It's kind of like a pep talk in your ear. The last one I was listening to, it's like a pep talk in your ear. I feel like people can put it in and then do the thing. Like, that you're telling them to do.
That's what someone told me they did. And I was like, oh, I actually never thought that you would do that. I don't know why it didn't occur to me that people would be actually decluttering while they're listening to the podcast. But yes, they do that. And it makes sense. And I try to keep it real. I try not to be too much of a hardo about like what they need to do. I try to take everything in consideration, and I love feedback. So if people are listening and send me an email and let me know what you're struggling with and want to listen to, like, that's super important to me, because that's why I have the podcast. It's not for me, that's for sure. It was, but it's for the people we're serving. So I
will say a huge call out to anyone who is listening to this podcast. You listen to any podcast, like, everyone always has like, well, what do you think? What did people think when I was on your podcast? And I'm like, I honestly have no idea, because that's the hard part about a podcast, is like, you don't get the instant gratification. Every once in a while, someone will love it so much that they'll send me a message or leave a review, which, by the way, listen, go to both of our podcasts, leave us reviews. Reviews matter as much as I'm like, it doesn't matter. It matters. Like, if we want this to get in front of more people have to leave reviews. And I get it, because I listen to podcasts all the time, and I don't normally I'm like, they don't need my review. That's so dumb. But it's the only way we really know, like, do you even like this podcast? Are you like, I'm assuming you listen because you keep coming back, and I can see the download numbers, but let us know whether do you show up on Instagram or do anything on social media? I know, like, I'm hit or miss. I do see my messages, but a lot of times I have them deleted off my phone so that it doesn't become a distraction and a rabbit hole I go into.
I know, I do. I have a Facebook community that I'm in there a couple of days out of the week. And then I do have an Instagram, Organized with Kristina. And I do try to put stuff up there because I want people to get organizing is very visual, right? So being able to give them some motivation. I've had people give me feedback like, oh, I saw your stories the other day and I have to clean out my garage. And that was really motivating. And now I feel like, okay, now I feel like I can do it. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I didn't think that you just don't know how it's going to impact people. And it's neat when people get back to you. And to your point, like,
I don't think people recognize how much we actually value the feedback. Yeah. Because this is like, we are just doing, especially podcasting, like, we're just doing it with the belief that they need it and it will hit where it needs to hit. Mm-hmm. So when someone actually is like, oh my gosh, I love that. And it's like, yay, that, like, it just totally makes my day. Doesn't it you?
Yeah. It was funny when you're saying that too. I was like, we were just talking about prayer. Like, God wants us to pray to him, even though he knows what's going to happen. I'm like, I feel the same way. Like, leave me some feedback so I know that you're listening.
Yes.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yes. It's just like,
oh gosh,
consider it a little pat on our backs, when you leave a review. All right, Kristina, it was so good to have you on here. I love it. I love you, and keep doing what you're doing. You guys go check out her podcast when you're done with this and give her a listen and go give her a review. And that's a wrap, friend. If today's episode spoke to you, don't let this be the moment you hit pause and go right back into that same cycle. Whether you're ready to go all in and commit to 6 months of breakthrough coaching, or you only want a single unstuck session right now, you'll find all the links in the show notes or on my website at Melissa Batt. That's Melissa Batt with 2 T's.com/breakthrough-coaching. Let's keep taking those baby steps together.